Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Um, we're going to wait a minute or two while we let everybody into the consultation room. So just bear with us for a second. We'll get going now. Thank you. Great. Good morning again. My name is Magesh Naidu. I'm the head of Circular Development at ICLEI's World Secretariat based in Bonn. I would like to welcome you to the final consultation of the local and subnational governments coalition to end plastic pollution towards INC5. It's been quite a roller coaster ride with various partners and stakeholders, and we're looking forward to the last push to INC5. This is the first of two consultation sessions that we'll have today, the second being at 1800 hours Central European Summer Time, so for our colleagues in the American time zone. If we go to the next slide, Kata, thank you. Just to again mention that the Local Subnational Governments Coalition is brought to you by some key partners, which includes ICLEI, Government of Quebec, Government of Catalonia, UCLG, Global Cities Hub, C40 Cities, Plastic Smart Cities, WWF, Regions 4, and in collaboration with UNEP, UN Habitat, and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. The coalition was then launched on the 24th of April, 22nd of April this year, parallel to INC4 in Ottawa, and has been gaining fantastic momentum thus far. I think we have over 72 signatories and look forward to growing this in the run-up to INC5. If we go to the next slide, Kata. Thank you. Just some housekeeping rules before we get started. When you're speaking, if you can keep your camera on so we could have a face-to-face gathering, that'll be appreciated. Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak for the audience and the attendees so we don't miss any inputs, or use the chat function. But please don't unmute if not asked by the moderator so we're not interrupting the speakers. It's not a webinar format, so you can unmute and put your video on and so on and so forth. We wanted to have an interactive session. So if we could just watch the microphones, please. And again, please use the chat function to post links or information about your projects and so on and so forth. That'll be appreciated. The call is being recorded, I believe, for future reference and for those colleagues who couldn't join at these time slots. So yeah, I guess be careful what you say as it is being recorded. And importantly, then let's create a safe space to discuss freely on plastics and the importance of plastics in the urban space, the local and subnational space. So let's create a nice, respectful space and talk about the topics. This will be appreciated. If we go to the next slide, Kazuo. Thank you. So I guess we've done with the welcome. We'll go straight into the introductions and a bit of the agenda. We're going to kick off the session with a presentation and refresher of the coalition and currently where we are in the process. And Idun Ronrud, who's an associate expert at the INC Secretariat, will take us through this. Thereafter, we have a presentation on the updated statement of the local and subnational government coalition from Gabriel Boichat Sancho, who is the Catalonian delegation lead or head to Switzerland. Thereafter, we have two interventions. The first from Chef Shawen in Morocco and Mr. Tabiti, who is the Director of Environment, Climate and Energy Efficiency, will take us through this. And thereafter, we have Mr. Cheng, who's the Deputy Director of the Environmental Protection, Waste Reduction of Hong Kong government. If we go to the next slide. Thank you. Thereafter, we go to WWF and hear on WWF's perspectives on the treaty, and Marilyn Makando, who's the Asia coordinator for the Global Plastics Treaty, will be taking us through this. Thereafter, Emmeline Ploucon, who is our Senior Advisor of Plastics Global Policy and Programs at WWF Norway, will be facilitating this question and answer session. So I hope you have come with a number of questions for us and our speakers, and Emmeline will be facilitating that. Before we close, Camelia Kamileva, who's the co-director of Global Cities Hub, will be wrapping up and providing a way forward kind of towards INC5 and what we can expect. And then I'll do the closure very, very quickly. On that note, I'd like to hand over to Eden and thank you again for making some time to be with us. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Magash. And hi, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, and good evening. My name is Eden Rognert, and as mentioned, I'm an associate expert in the INC Secretariat, where I work mostly on the substantive negotiations. Next slide, please. So as I'm sure all of you know by now, the INC process has been ongoing for almost 2 years after the Resolution 514 by the UN Environment Assembly in March 2022. Since then, we have had 4 INC meetings working towards a legally binding instrument to end plastics pollution, with the ambition to finalize the work of the INC this year, more specifically in our next meeting at INC 5 in Busan in the Republic of Korea. So next slide, please. I will not give you a full rundown of the process to date, but I figure it's helpful to have a bit of an idea of what's happened since our last meeting in Ottawa. So at the Ottawa meeting, it was decided to establish 2 ad hoc intersessional open-ended expert groups. These expert groups were tasked to discuss specific themes. One was discussing plastic products, chemicals of concern in plastic products, and plastic product design. And the other group has been discussing means of implementation. These groups have been meeting virtually in July and August, as well as in a 4-day in-person meeting in Bangkok, Thailand in the end of August. These meetings have been purely technical and of an expert nature, and there was no negotiation or decision-making at these meetings. It's purely a forum for exchange between member states in the process. These groups have now concluded their work, and a report from each group will be published in the coming week, hopefully, and will be made available at the INC5 website and presented for consideration for the committee at INC5. In addition to this work, there have been a couple of online and in-person meetings of heads of delegations that have been convened by the chair of the process. These meetings are also purely consultational for heads of delegations to exchange and identify pathways towards finding convergence and getting an agreement at INC5. Finally, in the intersessional period before INC5, we are planning, in collaboration with the chair, an observers webinar, and more information on this will be disseminated shortly. Next slide, please. So more specifically, what are we anticipating at INC5? So INC5 will take place at Bexco Convention Center in Busan, Korea, and will take place from the 25th of November to the 1st of December 2024. This meeting will be preceded by regional consultations on the 24th of November. And these consultations are for each regional group of member states to discuss and find agreed positions. And some regional groups do invite observers to take part of these meetings. That's completely up to the regional groups, how they want to run their regional consultations. The objective, as mentioned at INC5, is to get agreement on the text of this instrument so that it can be forwarded to the diplomatic conference and signed during next year in 2025. A legal drafting group is also envisioned to be convened as needed during the meeting. This legal drafting group is purely a mechanism to ensure that the language is legally sound, and they will not be doing any negotiations at the meeting, but just conducting an overarching review of the text. And I think the most important thing as you prepare to follow this process, either online or in person, is to be aware of the scenario note, which will set out the chair's vision for the organizational work at this 5th session. This scenario note will be made available ahead of the meeting, and we hope that it will get disseminated quite shortly, and it will outline the organizational work at the meeting and the sequencing of work. We are also planning an observers webinar on the 24th of November for any observers who are present in person in Busan. And an observers room will be made available for any coordination meetings during the session. Next slide, please. So for those of you who want to really do a deep dive on the process and get to know everything that's going on, we also have a number of documents that are either already available on the INC website or being published in the coming days. There are the agendas, so the provisional agenda, which gives quite a broad overview of what will be discussed at the session, as well as the annotated provisional agenda, which will be made available very shortly. There's also, as mentioned, the chair scenario note, the draft rules of procedure, and the compilation of draft text, which is the mammoth text that we currently have to work on, containing all of the proposals of the members of the committee. Finally, there are the 2 reports of the co-chairs for each of the 2 expert groups, and a number of information documents may also be made available from different UN entities submitted to the process. Next slide, please. I also thought it would be interesting for you to know we have now closed registration for the meeting. This closed officially on the 11th of October as it was extended, and a provisional list of participants will be circulated at the beginning of the meeting. We see that there's, similar to the previous meetings, a lot of interest in participation, and observer delegates amount to more than half of the registered participants, numbering 1,800 delegates from NGOs representing more than 550 organizations. Next slide, please. Finally, just a quick note for anyone attending in person that the government of the Republic of Korea has kindly waived the visa fee for the meeting participants, and any delegates and other participants are requested to apply for visas as soon as possible or to apply to the KETA if required before traveling to attend INC 5. And more information for any participants in person is available on the INC 5 information notes to participants, which is very comprehensive. So I highly recommend looking at that if you're coming to Korea. So with that, I think I'll wrap up, and thank you so much for inviting me to join you in this meeting. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that intervention and really insightful information, Idun. Much appreciated. And I must say, the Secretariat, the entire team have been really supportive. I understand how stressful the entire process has been. So thank you for making space always for the local and subnational governments coalition, and cities and regions in general. But we keep our questions to later. I also have quite a few that I would like to ask. Now we go on to Gabriel Boichet Sancho, who's the Catalonian delegation to Switzerland. Boichet, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Magash. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. So my goal today is to give an update on the statement of the coalition. The statement is the main document with the messages and objectives that all the members of the coalition have signed up for. But just first, before starting, I would like to apologize because I won't be able to stay until the end. We are in the middle of an internal meeting here at the Catalan government, and I have to be back at the session. But I know that my colleagues at the coalition, Magash, Kameli, and others will be able to answer any question probably better than me. So you will be in good hands. Next slide, please. The beginning and then the reason why the coalition at the end was created is because local and subnational governments, LSNGs, we are deeply concerned about the triple planetary crisis. Actually, we are in the front line of the plastic pollution crisis, and we are already experiencing its effects, including increased food risk with plastic waste accumulating and clogging drainage system, marine litter, and other risks to wildlife. And I think that is something common to everyone. We need all actors to face this crisis. As the matter is urgent, we call to member states to count on us and includes LSNGs as a key partner. Next slide, please. So why we consider that LSNGs needs to be recognized. There are many motivations what we consider that, but we have selected 4 examples. The first one is the financial implications. LSNG were facing increased pressure to manage plastic waste and pollution that threaten the environment and health of our citizens. So to avoid burdening LSNG with the rising costs, policies and laws must minimize plastic waste and pollution and hold producers responsible and accountable for managing their plastic products and packaging around the world. The second one is regulatory powers. This is not exactly equal everywhere in the world, but many subnational governments and local governments have regulatory powers, and therefore we have the ability to enhance implementation and enforce action. We can help improve circular economy, extended producer responsibility, improving reuse, repairability, and recycling, as well as, of course, waste management. And then the 2 last points are really related. The first is that we have practical experience. We are already facing the plastic pollution. We are already implementing policies, implementing actions. Therefore, we can provide insightful and experienced feedback to help central governments on their legislation and implementation action. And I'm saying central governments, but also other supranational bodies like, for example, the European Union or at the UN level. And related to that, if we have practical experience, we can also replicate and scale. We can effectively contribute to ongoing and new initiatives, replicate and scale sustainable best practices, successful case studies, and support capacity building of local stakeholders. That's something that is already happening. And we've seen through the coalition how different subgroups are being created of local and subnational governments wanting to collaborate and discuss about their best practices, but also sometimes bad ones, trying to not replicate those and really focus on the good practices. Next slide, please. So here, for the negotiations and our advocacy work, since the very beginning, we have developed what we call a wording. We wanted to go beyond a simple arguments and statements, which are very important and with political messages, but sometimes it's not enough when there are negotiations ongoing. So this document, the wording, wants to put and to give the delegations with specific examples on how we can introduce local and subnational governments into the text. So here I will show you some examples, of course, based on the last available draft, but we always update it each time we have a new draft. So before Busan, any new text that can be published, we will therefore adapt our wording. You can see here some example on the preamble, including subnational or atoll levels, subnational and national plans, etc. Next slide, please. Also on the principal part, an example here is in consultation with local and subnational governments. Next slide, please. We also have on waste management in collaboration with local and subnational governments, including collaboration. So you'll see that it's the same concept in different places, but very precise, very clear, and at the end is trying to make the work of the delegations the easiest possible as possible. Next slide, please. There we also have focus on capacity building chapter. Next slide, please. Thank you. Then, after showing that our call of to action that is included into our statement, I have to say that our main goal as a coalition is double. The first is speak with a unified voice. We are stronger that way. Also, we have discussed amongst us about the objectives and the way to translate these objectives into concrete action, but also, and this is very important, we call for an ambitious plastic treaty as a coalition. So our objectives as a coalition are also two. The first is recognition of LSNG as key actor for the negotiation, as I've been saying, and also, as you have seen through the wording, includes the LSNG role in the text of the future instrument to ensure an effective implementation. And probably this is the most important point. The reason why we consider that LSNG must be into the treaty is basically because we are sure that this is a way to ensure a most effective implementation of the treaty, of the text, as we are in the front line, as we have budget to take care of the plastic pollution. Also, we have responsibilities. It is important that our needs are taken in account in the treaty since the beginning and through the negotiations. As we mentioned, we call for an ambitious international legally binding instrument to put an end to the pollution. And the measure we call are first, minimize and where appropriate ban the production and use of plastics that are problematic, avoidable, and the most harmful to human health and environment, especially the single-use plastic products. So in this point, obviously, we promote the circular economy. On the second point, we improve waste management systems and other measures to limit pollution, plus hold producers accountable. And finally, we advocate for a just transition. All stakeholders included in the negotiations, LSNG, workers in the fossil fuel, waste workers, persons with disabilities, etc., and women, youth, indigenous people must be included. So this is my last slide. Maybe the last message is that as a coalition, we will be present at Busan. So here it's an invitation. We are more than pleased to meet you, to explain you the objectives, our language, and also engage discussion about the best way to actually include and take in account LSNGs into the treaty. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Gabriel, thank you very much for that intervention and information. I just want to highlight that these points that we put across has come together because of the consultation and input that we receive from local and subnational governments around the world. It's just that we aggregated and presented in this way, and this is why these consultations are then so important. So I hope the comments keep on coming through to help us, firm up these details. On this note, Katja, can I ask for you to stop sharing this slide so I can share a deck from Mr. Tibiti? On this note, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Tibiti from Chefchaouen to take us through intervention that we've just received an update. So give me a second. Katja, can you see my deck?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Perfect. Over to you, Mr. Tibiti.
So, hello, everyone. I am Abdurrahman Darghali. I'm in charge with Environment and the Cooperation Office in the municipality of Chefchaouen. I will present this presentation today in place of Mr. Wael Thabiti. So,
You are muted. Yeah.
So, first of all, I would like to thank UCAG, ICAD, the Quebec region, and Catalonia region for inviting the city of Chefchaouen to participate in this informational webinar on the plastic negotiation process and the experiences of cities regarding waste management and plastic use. So, next slide, please. Chefchaouen is a city located in northern Morocco with an area of 11.4 kilometers a current population of 42,000 inhabitants, and the local economy that primarily relies on tourism. Waste management is delegated to a company responsible for collection, cleaning, and landfilling at a local and controlled landfill, which is nearing its capacity. The city produces 36 tons of waste per day, 2/3 of which are organic waste. Today, only about 400 to 450 kilograms per day is recovered, mainly through the informal sector. A project is underway in the province to open provincial landfill and recovery center in Babtaza and to close the Chefchaouen landfill. As you can see, plastic represents 8.5% of the city waste composition, divided into three categories: 1% PET, 6% LDPE, and 1.5% other types of plastics. Next slide, please. Next. Chefchaouen's vision outlined in the local planning documents, especially in environmental sector, emphasizes proper waste management to reduce environmental impacts and bring socio-economic benefits by recognizing the informal sector and introducing source separation to enhance waste recovery as close to the source as possible. Next, please. In 2023, the city of Chefchaouen received assistance from the city Climate Finance Gap Fund to develop its vision and concept for waste management and recovery. A technical and financial pre-feasibility study was carried out. Based on these assessments, a modular and adaptable waste management and recovery concept was developed. It consists of both models to be implemented in Chefchaouen at the municipal level and models planned for Babtaza at the intercommunal level. This concept includes several phases from 2024 to 2031, starting with source separation, collection, recovery, disposal, and finding outlets for waste. Next, please. This concept is divided into two parts across two territories. Within the city, it involves the installation of composters, eco points, bins of organic material, the creation of recycling sites, and the formation of collective of waste sorters. The second part, its in neighboring area, will include a composting unit, biodigestion unit, an incinerator, and a landfill center. Next slide, please. It should be noted that plastic usage in the city is mainly concentrated on the bottle used in the bottles used in the restaurants and hotels, as well as plastic crates for goods and supplies. The city has several water fountains, so visitors do not need to buy bottled water. The structure of eco points will support the recycling of recyclable products like plastic, which is an important initiative planned by the municipality to eliminate the plastic in the city. So thank you for, thanks.
Thank you, sir, for that intervention. It's very insightful to see what's happening in Chefchaouen, particularly, with your figures up front and some of the interventions. And I guess what's important is that we focus on scaling and replicating some of these base good practices that are already there, so we can see this expand to, I guess, all of the city's region. But I'm certain you have many comments and questions, so we'll keep that for the question and answer session. Kata, if we can go back to the fantastic, thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Kenneth Cheng to deliver his intervention. And again, Mr. Cheng is the Deputy Director of Environmental Protection of the Hong Kong government. Mr. Cheng, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to join you today. So with this opportunity to share with you the latest experience in Hong Kong to tackle plastic pollution in Hong Kong. So recently we have implemented a new legislation to ban the use of different kinds of disposable tableware and some other single-use plastic products. So next slide, please. So first of all, some waste statistics about Hong Kong. So our latest, in 2022, the latest waste statistics, our total quantity of municipal solid waste disposed of at our landfill in Hong Kong was 4.6 million tons. So which is equivalent to the average daily quantity of about 11,000 tons. And on a per capita basis, so the per capita average is 1.5 kg per day. That's our waste disposal situation. So among the municipal solid waste that Hong Kong disposed of, food waste accounted for 30%. Food waste 30%, and then waste plastics account for about 21%. So waste plastics is actually the second largest components of our municipal solid waste. So among the waste plastics, which is 21% of our total waste, the plastic bags accounts for 33%. Plastic, including styrofoam diningware, accounts for about 9%, and plastic bottles accounts for another 9%. So you can see that the composition of our waste plastics. So the number one source is plastic bags. And that's why previously we have imposed a levy, a charge on plastic shopping bags, which is of course not the focus of my presentation today, but I also want to share with now the effect is very, very prominent. Back in 2015, we imposed a charge on the plastic shopping bags, and we see a very rapid drop in the use of plastic shopping bag. And then at the beginning of last year, we increased the charge by 50%, and in 2023, we saw a rapid 30% drop of the use of plastic bags. So just a little bit of charge, which is only $1 Hong Kong dollar, okay? So we see a very huge and very significant effect. Next slide, please. So plastic is widely used and deeply integrated into our life, but however, due to the harm to the environment, there's now an international consensus, to achieve sustainable development. We human beings must take action, to reduce plastic use. So Hong Kong, as I said, we have just implemented a new regulation to control disposable plastic products. We have implemented this new law since April 22nd this year. So it's quite new, okay? So the aim is to reduce the use of disposable plastic tableware and a list of other single-use plastic products at source. So the initiative seeks to mitigate the impact of plastic pollution on marine ecology and human health. So of course, together with the legislation, we also launch publicity and education with a view to establishing a habit and a culture of being plastic free in our society. Next slide, please. So let me now share our latest experience in our new regulation, which was implemented since April 22, which is the Earth Day of this year. Okay, so on the left-hand side, you can see basically for restaurants, we have banned the use of any kind of plastic cutlery and any kind of plastic tableware when people are dining in. So if you come to Hong Kong today and you go to a restaurant, you sit down and have your meal, there won't be any plastic containers, cutlery, straw, stirrers, whatever. You won't see any plastic, single-use plastic products in our restaurants, okay? But what about takeaway? So for takeaway, we've banned all forms of plastic cutleries, okay? All forms of cutleries, including also straws and stirrers. But at this first stage, for takeaways, we still allow the use of plastic cups and containers. This has to do with our, Chinese, food. We use a lot of hot soups and hot food. So currently, for taking away, they still cannot find a very suitable or durable, sturdy enough non-plastic alternatives for cups and containers. But other than these two, even for takeaway, all other forms of containers and cutleries, they have to be non-plastic. So that's the restaurant sector. And by the way, if it is styrofoam, no matter it's dining in or takeaway, any kind of styrofoam tableware or container, they are all banned. No more styrofoam containers used in our restaurants, okay? So apart from cutleries and tableware, we also banned the selling of a whole range of single-use products, okay? The list is very long, but I can name a few. So these include, for example, plastic stem cotton buds. Plastic stem cotton buds are banned. Balloon sticks, plastic ones, are banned. Plastic glow sticks are banned. Inflatable cheer sticks, those used in a football match or concerts, they are banned. Okay, umbrella bags. In rainy days when you go to shopping malls, sometimes we used to give out a lot of plastic, single-use plastic umbrella bags. Now they are also banned. Okay, so these are the single-use plastic products. We have banned the sales of these products. So this is the retail sector. Of course, the retail sector cannot sell the single-use plastic cutleries that are banned in restaurants. They are also banned for their selling. Their retail is also banned as well. And the third sector we're controlling, regulating, is the hotel sector. If you go to hotels, sometimes, especially in the past, they use a lot of, small bottles of toiletries, shampoos and body wash and like that, okay? And they also use plastic, single-use toothbrush, and what else? Combs and things like that, nail files. Okay, basically, our new regulation says that hotels cannot provide these products for free. Okay, they can still provide them at a charge, but they cannot provide them for free. But what happened is that our hotels come back and tell us, they said, okay, we want to go one step forward. We actually don't want to charge to our customers so that they can use this kind of disposable plastic products. We want to get rid of them. So they are now, if you come to Hong Kong's hotel, especially the more reputable ones, they have all changed to non-plastic toiletries or non-single-use plastic toiletry options. Okay. So to facilitate the adaptation of the trade, the restaurant, the food and beverage trade, the retail trade, and the hotel trade, we have adopted a gradual and progressive implementation approach. As I said, there are two stages. Now it's only the first stage. On the second stage, as I said, in those plastic cups and containers, they are still allowed to be used for takeaways. They will be banned as well. Okay, that will be the second stage. Okay, so this is now the first stage. And when we first introduced this regulation, there's a lot of pushbacks from the trade. They say, okay, how can we just get used of these products we've been used for decades? Okay, the citizens, they are not used to using alternative products. Say paper forks, they can't cut pork chops, things like that. Okay, so we allowed a 6 months of adaptation period. So during this 6 months adaptation period, the law is already in effect, but we do not do enforcement. So we go and inspect and visit the restaurants, the hotels, etc., to see if they have any problems. So if they have any problems, we help them solve the problem and help them transition. So now is almost the end of the adaptation period, and the transition has been very, very smooth. So both the trades have gotten used to using non-plastic alternatives, and the customers have gotten used to either using their own reusable cutleries and containers, or a lot of them even to go so much as, oh, we don't need you to provide any takeaway cutlery to us at all. Okay, so we've been getting some reports from the catering, the restaurant sector. They told us for big chain fast food restaurants, they said now 80% of their customers have chosen not to take any cutleries when they buy takeaway. So even if they can provide non-plastic options, they said, no, we don't need any disposable cutlery at all, okay? And about 30% of our restaurants have decided not to provide any takeaway cutlery at all. Even if you're willing to pay for them, they are not providing it to you, okay? So in the retail and service sector, the property management companies told us most people have gotten used to using umbrella dryers instead of using single-use plastic umbrella bags, okay? And during the festivals and football matches, the use of balloon sticks and glow sticks and party hats, etc., have significantly decreased. So, and the hotel sector also tell us that the many of the tourists, visitors staying in their hotel, they don't find this inconvenient. They actually support, these green measures. So, the response has been very, very encouraging. So we can see that the implementation of this new regulation has actually encouraged a habitual change among both the public and the trades. So fostering a new culture of plastic-free, disposable-free, and green recycling at the community level, and have been paving the way towards a new milestone in plastic-free Hong Kong. And so we'll continue to join hands with the industry and promote changes in habits and a greener plastic-free culture through publicity and education. And of course, we will also consider the maturity, popularity, and affordability of the relevant non-plastic alternatives before we introduce further regulation. The next slide, please. So that's the last slide. So at last, I would like to say today's events really provides an invaluable platform for the discussion and deliberation on the way we may scale up our action in support of our common green agenda. And I'm thankful for this opportunity for me to share this good experience and practice in Hong Kong with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheng, for a very insightful and interesting presentation. I know I was listening to every word you were saying, and I find it quite fascinating when you mentioned the regulations that you put in place actually then started to stimulate this wider spread behavioral change. And I think this is the critical mass and leverages that we're looking for. And I think Hong Kong is definitely then good practice on this. So yeah, I guess keep up the good work. I see some questions for you in the chat from Lucille, but I guess we'll come to that as well during the question and answer session. If we go to the next slide. Perfect, thank you. Next, I'd like to pass the mic to Marilyn Mercado, who's the Asia Coordinator for Global Plastics Treaty from WWF, to take us through some of WWF's perspectives on the treaty. Marilyn, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Magash. Good day to everyone. I hope you hear me well. And then I would like to request Kata for the slides. Thank you. So again, good day, everyone. Thanks for your time. As a global conservation organization, active in nearly 100 countries and an accredited observer in the ongoing plastic pollution treaty negotiations, WWF is pleased to share its perspectives via 2 reports in this local and subnational governments coalition to end plastic pollution consultation for the upcoming final session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, or INC5, in Busan in November 2024. So WWF implements the No Plastic in Nature initiative with a mission to reduce leakage of plastic into nature. The complex nature of our plastic pollution crisis can only be effectively addressed through a holistic, multi-level, multi-actor approach across the full life cycle of plastic. And this calls for the adoption of new global rules advocated for by our global plastic policy team, development of the national, local level policy tools like EPR, handled by our EPR teams, and piloting at city level and working on a knowledge platform by our Plastic Smart Cities team. So next slide, please. And one of our initiative's outputs is a report entitled Case Studies from Asia, City Level Learnings for the Global Plastic Pollution Treaty. Next slide, please. So done in collaboration with Accenture, we highlighted the importance of cities and sought to answer these 2 report research questions. First, what are the challenges faced by cities that go beyond a national or city level, which can be addressed by global rules in the Plastic Pollution Treaty? Second, what are the opportunities to scale up and accelerate city-level interventions through global rules in the Plastic Pollution Treaty? Next slide, please. So for challenges and enablers, despite commendable efforts by city-level authorities and interventions in addressing plastic pollution, this report underscores the presence of challenges that transcend the scope of individual cities or national efforts. The effective resolution of these challenges centers upon the establishment of universal binding global rules within the framework of a plastic pollution treaty. Plastic production and management, as well as plastic pollution, are transboundary and will thus need global rules to solve the global challenges, as highlighted by the analysis of selected city-level interventions in this report. Additionally, global rules in the Plastic Pollution Treaty offers opportunities to scale up or accelerate successful city-level interventions. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we invite you to read the reports. I'll share the links in the chat in a while. So to save some time, we would like you to have a quick start on the reports by looking at figures 1 and 2 there. So the one you're seeing on the screen now is figure 1, where you will see the plastics life cycle challenges and enablers in cities. And then next slide, please. Yes, and the next slide, please, as well. And then that's the figure 2, where you will see the binding global rules in the Plastic Pollution Treaty that can help cities become plastic smart. Next slide, please. And now these findings and recommendations are likewise echoed in the second report entitled A Global Treaty to End Plastic Pollution That People and Nature Need, that you can read as well in the link that I will be sharing. Next slide, please. We are all reminded that in the 2 years since the negotiations began, nearly 20 million metric tons of plastics have entered our ocean, adding to the vast quantities that have accumulated already in nature. At INC5, as the last meeting session, the international community faces a once-in-a-generation decision, either to keep the promise made at UNEA 5.2 to end the crisis and put our planet on a path to recovery, or to shrink from that responsibility. To ensure that world leaders deliver the treaty that people and nature need, WWF has identified 4 must-haves that states must secure at INC5. First must-have, eliminate harmful plastics pertaining to provisions to ban and phase out the most harmful plastic products and chemicals of concern. Second must-have, redesign products and systems, meaning global criteria on plastic product design, focusing on recyclability and recycled content, reuse and reuse systems as a starting point. Third must-have, align financial flows and ensure resources, including a comprehensive finance package that leverages all available sources, aligns financial flows, including public and private financing, and appropriate financial mechanism to mobilize and direct financial resources for implementation, and complementary technical assistance and technology transfers to maximize implementation effectiveness. And fourth, must-have is future-proof the treaty for long-term success, referring to evidence-based mechanisms to report, assess, and review progress and effectiveness of measures and potential necessary improvements, and effective decision-making mechanisms. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for sharing some of those insights, and we look forward to seeing the link for the report, Marilyn. Very insightful. Thank you. If we go to the next slide, perfect, thank you. And we're doing perfect for time. We're actually right on time. I'd like to now hand over to Emmeline, who's the Senior Advisor for Plastics, Global Policy and Programs from WWF Norway, to facilitate the question and answer session. Emmeline, I also see there's a few questions in the chat, but over to you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Magash, and good morning, everyone. I would start with the questions that are in the chat. I see that there's been a lot of interest in what's happening in Hong Kong, and especially related to the ambitious policies and laws that Hong Kong has adopted. So I will start with you, Mr. Cheng. So Lucille Courtial asked what alternatives are used in the restaurants to replace single-use plastics? And regarding the umbrella bags, what were the reaction of customers? And maybe I will add also another questions. What were exactly the reaction of customers in general in restaurants and when they were buying takeaways?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. So the availability and affordability of plastic alternatives to disposable plastic products is very important. So we know that any kind of single-use products is not good for the environment. Okay, but the purpose of this regulation is to get rid of plastic first. Okay, so non-plastic disposable products is the lesser evil. Okay, let's say it that way. So what are the alternative products? They are made of fiber, wood, bamboo, and paper, to name a few. So actually, after the introduction of this regulation, there are a lot of companies have emerged, specializing in importing or producing this kind of non-plastic alternative products. So we are aware that these are also single-use products. But the pleasant surprise of the effect of our regulation is that after we introduced this new legislation, the restaurants start charging for provision of takeaway cutleries, because they said the non-plastic alternatives are slightly more expensive. So we're going to charge just a nominal $1 Hong Kong, that's about 12 US cents, okay, for one set of cutlery. And that creates a tremendous effect. So like, as I said, 80% of the takeaway customers decide not to take the cutlery at all, because they charge 12 US cents. What does that mean? That means actually people really don't need to use single-use cutlery. They have their own reusable ones in their office or at home. Okay, just because the restaurants habitually put these disposable single-use cutleries into the takeaway bags, so people just take them without thinking. So now you just said, I have to charge you just a nominal fee. They have second thought and they decide not to go with it. So now actually, so our new regulation not just has the effect of getting rid of plastic, but it also has a very good waste reduction effect. Also, for umbrella bags, I mean, it has been criticized, the wide use of umbrella bags in Hong Kong, especially in summertime when there's a lot of rainy days, has been widely criticized. So this is the banning of the use of single-use plastic umbrella bags is actually quite high on the list of things they want the government to ban. So the citizens are gotten quite used to it. And if you go to a shopping mall in Hong Kong during rainy days, they will put out so many umbrella dryers, for people to dry their umbrellas. And by and large, I think the citizens are getting used to it quite well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cheng. I see that you have already answered the second question that was about the emergence of new enterprises and economic opportunities. You said that you have seen new opportunities related to alternatives such as fibers and papers. Have you been able to already assess the development of these new enterprises and estimate how many jobs have been created, or is it too early?
It's still too early. As I said, there are more companies providing these kind of alternative products, but they also notice, they think that their business will be very good. But as I said, as so many customers, takeaway customers, are now choosing not to have cutlery at all. So the business for them is not as good as they have expected. So what they do now is some people have started to try to develop a borrow and return reusable system. So this is also emerging, and this is a very good sign. The government has provided some seed funding to help them develop the system. So we're now trying to analyze the effect and how they work, and so that to see if there's any potential and opportunity to scale up this kind of system to make it a territory-wide practice.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Cheng. And a question related to scaling up solutions. And this is a question for both Mr. Cheng and Mr. Dargali. What are the main challenges to scale these solutions that you have started to implement? And what are your thoughts on that? And what are your needs to scale these solutions? Would you like
you mean
Mr. Cheng, and then we can ask Mr. Dargali?
Do you mean the borrow and return, that system?
Yeah, for instance, the deposit and return systems, and then also the ban of single-use plastic items. What are the challenges to ban more plastic items? And what are your needs as a local?
As it currently stands, our regulation has already covered a pretty wide range of single-use products. Okay, so currently the society is still in the process of getting used to it, but it has been very smooth. Okay, and Hong Kong people are very law-abiding, I must say, and they are very environmentally concerned as well. So as to the next stage, whether we have to go a step further to enlarge the coverage of the regulation, as I said in my presentation, it really, we have to take into account the actual situation in different society. Okay, so in Hong Kong, for example, if you want to develop the borrow and reuse the system, there's a lot of logistical challenges, and the restaurants in Hong Kong tend to be, most of them are quite small. Okay, so do they have a place for this kind of a system to be in place? So we have to be very careful in the planning for this. But of course, we also have to take into account the international trend, especially, for example, this UN treaty that's being developed. So if the international trend is going on for a certain direction, that will give the government, a stronger mandate, to consider more robust measures to tackling single-use plastics.
Thank you, Mr. Cheng. Mr. Dargali, I think you presented very well this new waste management system that you are putting in place in Shafshuen. What are the main challenges that you face today, like to implement this system?
So thank you. I wanna ask you to excuse my English because it's not my first or second language. So as you know, Chefchaouen municipality is not developed in the subject of waste management. So it's try to develop this concept, but by this pre-feasibility study. So this study is concerning in concert of recycling and source separation. So the main challenge of the city is the awareness of the population here about the plastics and his dangers and like this. So one of the solutions is making sensibilization and formation for the civil actors to share this mentality of separation, recycling, like this. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dargali. Now we'll move on to another question that I see in the chat, and I think I will ask this question to Camelia Kimileva. And so the role of local and subnational governments in the climate and biodiversity negotiations have advanced significantly and continue to do so. How does the role of the local and subnational government in the plastic treaty align itself with these developments, especially in the global biodiversity framework? Camelia, you are muted. Camelia, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, Camelia, you're still on mute. We can't hear you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I was trying to unmute myself. So yes, it's very important question because we have different frameworks, and obviously the Secretariat from the UNEP will confirm this. It is true that these are different frameworks and these have different dynamics of negotiations. So the question is how the local and subnational governments are aligning themselves with the other developments. Again, that negotiation on plastic pollution is on a particular treaty. So as previous speaker said, we are doing our best. Now, the negotiators are the same somehow. They come from the environmental departments or environmental ministries of the countries. And in this sense, they, with the other frameworks, they must have already some knowledge of how local and subnational governments are positioning themselves. But concretely, there is no way to align ourselves with other frameworks. We have to be active on that negotiation. And this is what the coalition is set for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Camelia. I also received some questions for Idun here. So I think the first question was that it seems that the registration is now closed for INC5. Are there any other ways to participate to INC5? And then the second question is about the diplomatic conference that will happen after INC5. Which format will take this conference? And yeah, what is going to look like?
Thank you. Thank you so much for those questions. So I think I'll begin with the question on participation. So while the registration for the meeting is unfortunately closed, I think there are two avenues to be aware of. The first one being in the process leading up to INC5. You, of course, have the opportunity to engage with the process in terms of participating in the webinars for observers that we will be arranging before INC5. It's also important to remember that it is the member states that negotiate in these processes. So engaging with your national delegations is a really important and constructive route of engagement with the process overall, as well as engaging in coalitions such as these and with other observer organizations. Beyond that, during the meeting, we will be live streaming the plenary sessions. So you can follow all the plenary sessions at UN Web TV, and the plenaries are really where the decisions are being made and the action happens. Additionally, of course, we know that a number of observer organizations and members will be hosting events on the sidelines of the INC. So while there are no official side events, there are, of course, opportunities for those that wish to arrange whatever they want to arrange on the sidelines outside of the venue. I think those are the main points when it comes to engaging. When it comes to the diplomatic conference, that is still quite in the open at this stage, what that will look like. I think that will be decided at INC5 in terms of the timing, dates, venue, and so on. So it's up to the member states how they want the diplomatic conference to be organized, but it will be organized next year according to the current schedule. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Idun. Speaking about side events, I have a question for Magash. Magash, is there any side events or events planned by the coalition at INC5 that people here can attend?
Thanks for the question, Emmeline. Indeed, I believe the Korean ministry is arranging quite a few days of engagement that would run in parallel to INC5, and we've applied for a session on this for the coalition. We were initially planning a 2-day city engagement, but for various logistical reasons, this did not materialize. So it is possible for local subnational governments to participate in this side event. If we're allocated space, I'm certain we will be. The current plan, though, is again to focus on best practice, to let national governments know that local and subnational governments are here and are supportive, but at the same time that we need, a few elements to be taken into account into the negotiation process to enable the work to be scaled up and so on and so forth. So further information on the side event, once we secure space, will be available on the link on the web page we shared earlier. But yeah, more than that, I don't have details at this point in time. I think in the next 2 weeks, this will be firmed up though.
Thank you, Magash. And maybe a last question before I close this session. Can you share more information about how local and subnational governments can join the coalition, if anyone is interested in this group? Oh, you are muted, Magash.
Sorry, I had a double mute on. Thanks for that. That's also a really interesting question. So from now to INC5, there are a few touch points or opportunities. The first is, we have our email addresses and contact details on the website, and we're always interested and keen to hear directly from local and subnational governments from around the world. So the first I would say is reach out, let's have a conversation. We'd like to hear your perspectives so we can take the information and pass them on to member states. The second is on the same webpage, there is a sign up button where you could become an official signatory to the coalition or support the statement. It's not an in-depth process. I think the points we're advocating for are representative of all local and subnational governments, and there's nothing contentious in there. So that's the second. The third is we will be reaching out to national representatives soon that are involved in the INC process with very tailored letters, last points to make before INC 5. These will go out in the next week. So we are looking for high ambition cities that would back these statements and letters that will go to their respective national governments. So, for example, if Chef Shawan is signing the letter, it would go to the relevant Moroccan ministry. These are the top three that come to my mind, but yeah, always open to discuss and chat further.
Thank you very much, Magash. And now I would like to hand over to Camelia.
Thank you very much. And this time I'm not muted. So I have a couple of minutes just to make the wrap up of the session. And as usual in these webinars, we have the process. So how INC5 will go on, who is registered, how it will continue, and then the substance, which very gratefully we hear from local and subnational governments. I will not wrap up the substance because unfortunately or fortunately, this is an ongoing dialogue. So I will limit myself within the minutes I have with the process and give you probably not only a wrap up, but also some new information building of what it has been just said. So colleagues, the INC5 is supposed to be the last round of negotiations. And so the chair, who is an ambassador and vice minister from Ecuador, Luis, he's quite ambitious. So he has announced already on another webinar that he wants to strike a deal and to finalize the text of the treaty during this INC5. That means that there was rumor that it could be another INC, but as it looks from today, it means that the INC5 will be the one where the deal on the text is struck. As Magash said at the beginning, we have a compilation, which is now too large, but upon this, the chair has produced a non-paper and probably even another non-paper. I will share with you in the chat a non-paper from the 24th of September, which is not on the website of the INC5, because this is not a negotiation non-paper. This is just a kind of scenario non-paper, which will complement the scenario which will be published also for the INC5. And this scenario, actually, this non-paper indicates what are the areas, important information, what are the areas where the chair will strike the deal and will not accept new proposals. So, for example, if you look in the non-paper, which has just been published in the chat, for example, if you look the point which is at 15, information exchange on the page 7, it is indicated that no work in the interim period between the diplomatic conference and the COP1 is envisaged. In other areas, such as financing and others, national plans, the points that Gabriel Boychat mentioned earlier, there will be more negotiation. And here comes my point. The good news is that we can, as a coalition, step into this and still propose a new language, which is including the local and subnational governments. So if the bad news is that you're not registered to go physically to INC5, the good news is that we can still participate as a coalition or individually connecting with your national governments, connecting with other coalitions to reinforce the text of the treaty, which will emerge in INC5. So this is for the concrete follow-up. The steps will be, further steps will be that the scenario paper, the non-paper, everything will be public and published before INC5. Now, the bad news is that it will be as it will be the last negotiation, it will be probably not very transparent, so to say diplomatically, or even not understandable for observers, because as it is a very classical interstate diplomats negotiation, states will be sitting together in small groups in closed rooms, and they will be striking the deals around the points which remain open, meaning that probably not even the Secretariat, but in any case, the observers sometimes will be excluded by these deals. This is how it works. The topic of the Plastic Pollution Treaty is very important, but this is a very classical, traditional interstate negotiations. And at the end of the run of these negotiations, states need to sit together in small groups, negotiate things which remain at one point of time behind closed doors. Now, the good news is, as Magesh said, is that we will be sending letters, tailored letters to all the delegations through the coalition with proposed language. We have suggested language. Some of this suggested language is still there. At the end of the INC5, it might be still there in brackets, and the brackets will be waived after further negotiations by the chair and member states. So we still have time to act, and we need to propose very concrete language on the places of the treaty which are susceptible, which could be open to local and subnational governments. And these are, once again, if you look in the non-paper, rather the points starting with 6, plastic waste management, existing plastic pollution, including the marine environment, just transition, finance, financial mechanism, capacity building, implementation and compliance, national plans, reporting, monitoring, information exchange, awareness, education, and research. These are the places of the treaty where we have some chance, probably, to include references to local and subnational governments, and this will be important to concentrate and fight on this field. So to end up with the recommendations, we need, as Magesh said, as many signatories from local and subnational governments as possible from all the regions, and as soon as possible. We stay active and monitor the last iteration of the treaty, which will emerge very soon. And then to say a couple of words about the process. After INC5, most probably, and this is still a theory, but this is what is scheduled for the moment, there will be a diplomatic conference held in 2025, somewhere in the world. And in this diplomatic conference, the text will be finalized. So the treaty will be ready. And then we have some examples in history of other treaties that the time between the diplomatic conference, when the text is ready and open to ratification and accession, and the time the treaty enters into force is a couple of months. This is a very, very optimistic, very optimistic schedule. Unfortunately, sometimes it could be a couple of years. So between the diplomatic conference and the first state party conference, meaning that in this time, as many states as defined in the treaty has to ratify or access to the treaty, so the treaty enters into force. For example, this period in the Minamata Convention on Mercury was 4 years. So I hope it will go quickly, given the urgency on the topic, that between the diplomatic conference, ratification, accession of the needed number of states and the first COP, we have less time, but this is the future will show. So to sum up, we stay active. The period to be active is really before INC5, and then between INC5 and the diplomatic conference, when the treaty is totally finalized, sometimes in 2025, and then to start lobby immediately when we know the text of the treaty, even if in the worst case scenario, local and subnational governments are not very much included, to stay active that in the implementation of the treaty by the states that has ratified, that will ratify them, the perspective and the reference of local and subnational governments are taken into account. So a lot of work, still a long way to run. Magesh, you know, full terms of reference for us, for the coalition and for you. And yes, thank you very much for giving me the floor on this topic.
Thank you, Camilla, for wrapping that up and providing some insights on the way forward. Indeed, it's going to be quite an intense few months, but we look forward to it. I think, you know, when we talk about the Paris Agreement, it was quite a milestone. Maybe not many people had the opportunity to actively participate and contribute, but this is the next big milestone. And we now, I think we have a fantastic opportunity to co-create and shape this. So we can talk about it in a few years and look back once implementation is underway. I'd also like to thank Emmeline for the question and answer facilitation. I think that was really insightful responses and questions. Thank you. Okay, so on this note, I'd like to thank everybody for attending, particularly the speakers and presenters. This was much appreciated. I think all of the information was very insightful. It leaves us with a lot to think about in the run-up to INC5. Special thanks to Idun and to Juan Pablo from INC Secretariat for being here and sharing this information, and particularly Mr. Tabiti and Mr. Cheng from our local and subnational governments, and Mr. Dagali, you know, for representing. I think it's important that member states and stakeholders in general hear directly from local subnational governments. Also, special thanks to Catalina for supporting us at the back end for the consultation. Much appreciated. On this note, please keep in touch. Our details on the website, the link we shared earlier, and wishing everybody a good rest of day.